I'm going to drill in a little bit, just specifically on the Trove part. And it was great to see some of those numbers from Alan. I think when I always look at those numbers, it's the Trove is growing as a percentage of the users of OpenStack, but it's not like OpenStack's staying still either, right? The growth of OpenStack, we're kind of growing on a growing base, which is always a great thing for something I always look for in opportunities when I look at the world. So just, where does Trove fit into the world? And I'm going to talk a little bit both about what's going on with Trove, but also what's going on with databases as a service at large. But looking just specifically at the Trove project, this is from, I still call it OLO, but it's from the Black Duck's Open Hub project statistics. And you can see here, Trove is continuing to grow. Trove is growing as a project, the number of contributions. I don't know how many of you noticed early before we actually got started, we had the screensaver up that showed kind of the evolution of the code base within Trove. You'll see that later too, but it's a great visualization to show you how the tentacles of the Trove code base as it grows. I think one of the big things when you look at the code base of Trove, it's the integrations. Alan mentioned that the interoperability, the integrations, and the fact that you work with everybody. I think that's one of the key aspects of OpenStack. And one of the key advantages of Trove, it's not one database's solution. It's a solution that integrates with everybody. It's a solution that can take advantage of different types of storage technology, different types of cloud and interoperate. And that's really something that you can see, when you dig in past this level of detail in terms of just the raw numbers of code, when you start seeing where that code's actually being contributed, the number of databases that are being supported, the number of capabilities that are being added is really great. Again, as I said, it's not just about Trove, though, and not just about how OpenStack's growing. I think Trove is in a great position because it's at this intersection of these two rapidly growing trends. OpenStack's growing, the cloud's growing, private cloud is growing, database as a service is growing too. And this is some research that was done a little while back, actually, from 451. One of the things I'm going to be sharing with you a little later in the presentation is some new numbers. It's on some survey data that we don't have all the data summarized and compiled yet because it's actually in the field right now in terms of looking at people's adoption of database as a service. But I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview later. But this is from the existing data, and as you can see, the growth of database as a service has really been impressive over the past few years and kind of projecting going forward. Some of these numbers, again, I think one of the things when I look at database as a service and database as a service adoption, I hate to say the A word, of course, but I think when you look at the world of the public cloud, Amazon's really hitting it. They have a great business. They're doing a great job. I always think, again, I look for places where OpenStack can both innovate and become better than Amazon and create an opportunity for more people to participate, a more open opportunity. But also I look at Amazon and say, how can we replicate some of this stuff, right? And I think in the world of database as a service is a big opportunity for us here because you look at, back in 2012, the fastest growing, when it was introduced, DynamoDB, database as a service for NoSQL, was the fastest growing service on Amazon. And that was true for a while. And then just this year, they announced that Redshift has basically overtaken DynamoDB as the fastest growing service on Amazon, right? I think that's incredible. I think that's really great news for us. In addition, when you look at the number of people just using the basics of relational databases, right? That's going to be most of the people using a database as a service platform. There's certainly going to be a lot of data warehouse opportunities. There's going to be a lot of NoSQL. But even just when you look at the RDS, the relational database service, they've got a 45% attach rate. So 45% of Amazon customers also use the RDS service as well as part of their usage of the Amazon environment. So I think that's also speaks to the fact that databases are really central. And again, anyone coming to Trove Day, I probably don't even have to tell you that. Databases are important in the world of IT and something that's really, as people move beyond the basics of compute and storage and basic storage, as Alan pointed out, people are moving for more sophisticated use of the cloud, building more complex applications, going beyond simply hosting web servers and basic services. Databases are going to be a critical part of that, and that's what you're seeing. And Amazon's kind of set that model, and they obviously have kind of knocked it out of the park in terms of how they've gone. I think one of the things that we're doing now, let me just go back, is that we're working on this survey, and I mentioned this earlier. We're looking at we're working together actually with 451 Research. I really like those guys. They do a nice job, and they're guys that know both the OpenStack side and the database side. So it's good to work with them on a survey like this in terms of they can kind of bring in a little bit of insight on both sides. So we decided to work with these guys to put together a survey on the adoption of database as a service in the enterprise today. And we surveyed 200 enterprises, and looking at their forecasts of adoption over the next 12 to 36 months, and looking at across public, private, and hybrid clouds. And I think one of the things we see is that certainly when you look at the older numbers that I had up here earlier in terms of the adoption curves and the amount of growth in the industry around database as a service, a lot of that growth is on Amazon, right? Amazon's done a great job of it, and I think Amazon's kind of leading the way. But one of the things we found actually, when we did a survey of database adoption last year, was we found that actually the number one use case that people are looking at for hybrid and private cloud is actually database and big data. Those were the biggest use cases because, and I think it's something that I mentioned the 451 guys, Matt Aslett, who's one of the analysts over there, he coined a term called data gravity. The idea being, you're more likely to use the data if you don't have to move it around so much, and if the data is coming out of your enterprise applications and those are in your private cloud or in your data center, it's great if you could just reuse that and move that into systems, databases, data warehouses that are also close by, so you don't have to move all the data in and out of Amazon all the time. So what we see is that when you look at the use cases, the reasons for people to bring in data into the cloud, bring in private clouds, start utilizing hybrid and private cloud scenarios. Database is one of the big places. They looked at, in the survey, we started looking at the number of types of databases they're using and biggest barriers and benefits that people see. So with that, I'll just share a little bit of the early results of what we're starting to see from that. First thing, there's no doubt that it's growing. Right? When, of the folks that we surveyed, and again, this data is a little preliminary, we'll be publishing the actual report in the next month or so. It's definitely increasing. People are ramping up their use of database as a service. Not too surprising, they're ramping up their use of the clouds as well. So it kind of goes along with that. As the cloud grows, as database as a service grows on top of the clouds that are already out there, certainly it's not terribly surprising that 77% of the people who are surveyed are actually going to be using more of it. And that's kind of where we're at, and hardly anybody's decreasing. Yeah, it's off a small base, so decreasing is probably not so interesting, but I think it's definitely a great trend that as you see the growth of database as a service spending. When you look at what triggered these folks' decision to move to a DBaaS architecture, they really want to get the benefits of the cloud. They're looking for the ability to bring in, that agility, and they've got an aging infrastructure. They've got to move away from the old store. They have to move from the old school and the old store to something where they can have greater degrees of engagement. They can provide a greater ability to have the agility and the cost savings that's available in the cloud-based infrastructure. And they have to be able to support the developers. Again, I always say, when I see people moving in the private cloud in particular, it goes back to what I said about Amazon setting the bar. And so if you're standing up a private cloud and developing services and delivering services, Amazon's already kind of dictated and said, this is what you should expect, because your developers are going to say, well, if I can't get it here, I know where I can get it. All I have to do is pull out my credit card and get that kind of ease of adoption, ease of use of a database. When you look at, so that's kind of why they go there, right? But they want to go to database as a service, and you saw the expectation that they're going to be growing their usage and growing their spend on database as a service over the time. But then you look at, okay, so what do they need in the database as a service? What do they want from the vendors and the solutions that are out there? You know, and I look at this as saying, well, what does Trove need to have that will make it more appealing to these guys to make sure that they're going to achieve it? And I think one of the encouraging thing is when you look at it, first thing, being able to integrate with existing production applications. And how do you do that? By plugging into the databases that support those existing applications. I think that's a big part of that. So that, and then number two, kind of the same thing, support for specific databases. I need to support MySQL. I need to support MongoDB. I need to support Oracle database. You know, we need to support DB2 or Couchbase. All the databases that are supporting these existing applications, you know, Trove and the database solutions that are out there need to actually accommodate those users. You can't just say, oh, well, we've got a new database as a service, you just have to rewrite your applications, you know, to support the databases we support. No, you know, OpenStack is about being open. OpenStack is about bringing in these areas, and I think this is one of the things where, you know, again, you look at OpenStack and the ability to not just keep up with Amazon, but the ability to innovate. You know, I think Trove is a great opportunity to innovate because it can accommodate all these databases. It's not just you've got a solution for RDS in this silo over here, and you've got a solution for NoSQL with DynamoDB, our proprietary NoSQL solution over here. It's, you know, the Big Tent. You know, it's the OpenStack Big Tent. Well, this is the Trove Big Tent. Bring them all, and make it all work together. And you know, again, I think the, you know, security, and I think this, you know, you look at the selection criteria, and that's a big important piece. Oops, sorry, I thought I had one more slide there. But the security, one of the things too, and this is something that we saw, is when you look at the people that when you ask them what they have to have, what are the things that are going to keep them from using database as a service, right? One of those things is security. And I think this is security and privacy. You know, that's one of the big answers. And again, we haven't compiled all the results yet. You'll be seeing that soon. But I just want to give you a sneak preview. But security and privacy is one of the biggest things that people need to see from these database as a service solutions, and something that, again, with Trove, we're investing in. We want to see, you know, we want to enhance that. And I think one of the reasons why, you know, people are looking at Trove as a solution, why they're looking at private cloud database as a service, whether it's Trove or something else, it's because they have a little bit more control of the environment versus trusting, you know, the Amazons of the world, and the fact that they you know, can put these databases in-house, put them behind their own corporate firewalls. You know, and again, I'm not one to criticize Amazon for their ability to secure data, but one of the challenges is if you don't have the oversight of your enterprise IT organization, you know, sometimes, you know, the individual developers don't make all the right choices for privacy, security, and things. And I think one of the benefits of having a solution that is encompassed and managed and controlled by the company is that you have a little bit more consistency in how policies are enforced and how the databases are used within the organization. And I think that's one of the benefits. So with that, you know, again, like I said, I didn't want to spend a lot of time up here because you'll be seeing more of me all day because I'm the master of ceremonies here. But with that, you know, again, you kind of see how people were using databases, why databases are so important, why having a choice of databases and supporting standard databases is so important, which leads us directly into our next session. Because we've got Gene Bosman, who kindly agreed to participate and help moderate the panel up here with some leading experts of some of the databases and database companies that are supported by Trove and how they're actually integrating into this environment.